So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Lauren Graybill Herman. I'm the rabbi at SAJ, which is Judaism that stands for all. We are an institution that is striving to be on the forefront of inclusivity for trans and non-binary folks. It's a 100-year-old institution. We have always, of course, room to grow, but we're proud of our role so far, and we're so happy to be hosting this event this evening. I want to welcome Cleo and Hazel Katz, our two filmmakers and stars this evening, and we cannot wait to hear from you and learn more from you. And thank you everyone for joining. Again, if you'd want to put pronouns in your Zoom name or shout out from where you're from or community, so we can all be connected on Zoom this evening. So before we start in filming and showing the film, before we start showing the film, I just wanted to contextualize this evening. It is, of course, important, to hear voices of people in the trans community, but we want to make sure we contextualize it and say that this is an especially important moment to do that. 2021 has been the deadliest year on record for violence against trans people. Recorded 47 trans or non-binary, non-conforming individuals that have been killed through violence because of their gender. This year, there has been record-breaking amounts of anti-trans legislation. 33 states have introduced more than 100 bills that aim to curb the rights of transgender people across the country. This is a really serious moment where we need to stand up for and with the trans community. And one of the ways that we address this culture of hate and violence and oppression is to choose to humanize when others dehumanize, and to choose to carve out space, to make space for trans people and non-conforming people to tell their own stories in the ways that they want them to be told. Bubby Them is a film about trans people, about those on the margins, and it is told by people with whom have that experience and is their story to tell. It's a story of two generations coming together as chosen family in a world that does not allow them to be their full selves. So now I'm going to briefly read some bios from our filmmakers, and then we'll show the film. After the film, I'll have a few brief questions that I will ask, and then we'll open it up for anyone else who wants to ask a question as time allows. So we're very, very happy to have with us, an honor to have with us, filmmaker Hazel Katz, who is completing a collaborative residency at Union Docs and is pursuing an MFA at Hunter College. We also have Cleo, an artist, filmmaker, and spiritual activist. They have a BA in Media and Gender Studies at CUNY, Graduate School of Unique and Interdisciplinary Studies program. And I happen to know, be lucky to know Cleo personally, and know that they are a person who is consistently out there making art and standing up and speaking out, even when it is extremely difficult. So I'm so, so proud to have you. I think without further ado, we're going to show the film, which is about 20 minutes long. And then we'll have that couple questions from me, and then a couple questions from the audience, from the community. So if Cleo, Hazel, does that sound like a plan? Are you ready? Okay, so I think we should.
I think you need to make me the host again.
Oh, that's right. We did that earlier. Okay, I'm going to do that now.
And as they say, turn off your cell phones, keep yourself muted, have some schnapps and popcorn, people. Get ready for the ride. And that's it. And that's the end of the program.
Here we go.
I remember when Matt was a little boy, maybe 7 years old. We were out back playing, and Matt found this bird, a little nighthawk, and it was wounded, you know. So we picked it up, took it inside, and over the next couple of weeks, we nursed it back to health. Then when it was all better, we took it outside and let it free. Matt stood there, watched it fly away. I think that was the happiest moment in his entire life.
Hi, I have a really important message to tell you. This is JJ right here. JJ and I met back in early 2017 at Bubby Razi's house. Just relax, close your eyes. We're gonna deal with the whiteness. I live at home alone with the service dog. I'm overweight, 72 years old, and suffer from an unstable gait, macular degeneration, and a bipolar disorder. My grandchild acts as my nursing aide because I can't afford one to help me with assistance living.
Here. 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 Here.
Do you know where there's kosher pizza? Where's Schnitzie's? Where's that located? We have too many boxes. The thing is, are you going to look through it?
Yeah,
and are you going to throw
you're
it
touching
out?
things that you're not supposed
This, I don't know what this is.
to. Let me see what that
This
is.
is breadcrumbs. It shouldn't be by your bed. It's like a GPS documentary that I walk a different neighborhood. Because this is how I dress. Is that it?
Like that?
Yeah. You wear a kippah, I wear this, you know? Thank you. I'm really considering lately to take hormones,
Okay.
but I'm really scared to do so. United Jewish Federation?
Yeah, I have to give him money.
Why? You don't have money.
I have to give him money. If they send it to me, I have to give him money. And I have more
And what
clothes.
is all of this garbage here?
Oh, this is my garbage. This is my socks, my... What else is here? I don't know what's in here.
How do you live? Before I came here, how did you take care of yourself?
I managed. You didn't discuss this with your mother, did you?
No, I did not. She wouldn't talk to me.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean she wouldn't talk to you? So why'd you go over there?
She barely talks to me after she kicked me out of the house.
So why do you feel you have to go over there? She's treating you like garbage. I'm sorry to tell you that.
I don't know. I feel like I owe her.
You owe her what?
I feel so safe and comfortable living and walking in this neighborhood. People respect me. They smile when they see me. They wonder when I'm getting married. There's room for individuality. Ow! What are you doing? Nobody touched you.
What, motherfucker? The fuck away from me! Fuck away from me, motherfucker!
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of myself. I'm scared of being me in public. I'm scared
What's
of...
wrong with you being me? You could be anyway, whoever you want to be. What is the clear? Why should it bother you what other people think?
I don't feel confident. I don't feel secure. I
You
feel...
feel secure here. Coming. Be right there. Be right there.
When I first met them, I was immediately drawn to them. They're really fuzzy and warm to be around with, and they just have such a great smile, and their hug, you know when they love you and they're really, you know that person when they really come and they love you and they really want to help you, you know, you could just feel their aura and they come from a good place, and I just felt nothing but love and goodness from SAJ. Dear Mom, I'm writing to you from my new home. I'm doing well. I have a stable job, supportive friends, and a community that embraces me.
JJ, can I come in?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
No.
You still have the headaches?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. What can I do you for? Hi. Have a good Shabbos. It's getting worse. I have an ointment I've been putting on. I take Arthro 7, you know, for, for my pains. It's called Arthro 7 for arthritic and rheumatoid arthritis. That helps everything is a temporary fix.
Mi melech malchei hamelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzeitchem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon Mi melech Shabbat shalom, Bubby. I don't know what I would do without you.
I don't know what I'm going to do without you. You're going to go places, Jay.
I
You're
don't
going to
know.
go a lot of places.
What is this?
A letter that was put under my door. Unfortunately, acceptance of what the Torah forbids has seeped into parts of the Jewish community, including the parts that identify as Orthodox. Those struggling with homosexual inclinations deserve our full attention and concern. We need to do everything in our power to uplift such fellow Jews and help them in their struggle to live in accordance with the Torah.
I just wish that no one has ever went through what SAJ has experienced during their childhood.
Hey girls.
I really would like you to get to know them more. And I'm sure you'll agree with me. They're just such an amazing person. Just wait and see. Oh, I must have left it here. My community's so thoughtful. They leave stuff on the corner and knowing I would come back and return. There has been a monumental shift in the larger world's attitude towards homosexual expression over recent years. Bum bum be dum 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 bum
Baruch atah Adonai Baruch atah Adonai Baruch atah Adonai
Dysphoria, she's losing it again. Is there a way to make your lips not reside, like out? They go in. What's Rosie Roz's crazy talent?
I beat up people.
You beat up people. Rosie Roz, the drag queen who beats up people.
The library is now open. Miss Tyra, was your barbecue canceled? Your grill is and Miss Tatiana, Miss Honey, you think you're so soft? Not by the hairs of your chinny chin. And let me tell you something, puerca.
78% of them that were killed, attacked, and more discriminated were transgender women. So imagine that I transition all the fears and pain and attack and assault
Hello?
that I'll have to deal with. I've already been assaulted 3 times.
With the black people, the black people.
No, it was not black, it was not Latino, it was all types of people.
I know that when I want to find affirmation, I find it here. Rabbis notice when I brandish my new nail polish, when I have a new pair of earrings, when I put on a new skirt, even when I buy a new wig.
I'm not scared of pain because with the pain I have, I manage to take her down. But at nighttime, my whole leg freezes up. I can't move. That's the thing. So I don't know whether it's because I'm in a lying position or if I sit down, it's fine. But when I'm flat and my leg is stretched out, that's when I can't move.
May 2016.
Well, you're not throwing it away?
Throwing it away.
Half of these things I pay for it. And I don't look at it. I don't have time to look at it. And the food magazines I want.
They are gonna stay, but look how dusty this
I
is.
want the food magazines.
I'm not touching it. You want to keep all of these? You're gonna read all of these? All of these you're gonna read, Rossi? Important message to the community. There is a global shift in the world's attitude towards homosexual expression that even seeped into parts of the Jewish community.
If you're going to be happy, you have to make up your mind. You're not going to let the world crush you down.
Well, the world is crushing me down. I live in this world. So
Hello?
I do think about how I navigate in this world.
Hello, you have
And
to...
I do think about that I don't have access to some successes because of my identity.
I don't believe that. There's a lot of cross genders that have super duper jobs and making super duper money.
I'm not a cross dresser. And I don't feel like I don't want to be one for the rest of my life, living in the closet and dressing up as I am for just the pleasure of it.
I hear you, I hear you.
Do you mind if I extend your lips?
Up here.
Yeah?
Oh my God. Oh my God. You walk out in the street there.
Being proud, it doesn't make you strong enough.
Yes, it does. It makes me strong.
I'm not strong.
Then I'll make you strong. You have to believe what I tell you.
I'm married to a nice man, and we have 3 children. Sam, Max, and Ruby. I'm done living in shame and in blame and in fear and preventing myself to wear, to be, to express, to present who I truly am. I cannot change who I am, nor do I want to change. Why did God make me this way?
I don't know whether God made you this way. I think God left it up to you to make a decision.
Hi, I'm JJ. I don't know what you're doing here because I live here and nobody invited you. This is my space and Bubby Rozzy's space, and I would really feel comfortable if you left, like now. Thanks.
It is good to acclaim the Lord, to sing your praise, exalted goddess, to proclaim your love each morning, to tell of your commitment each night, to the music of the lute and the melody of the harp. Your works, O Lord, make me glad. I sing with joy of your creation. How vast your works, O Lord. Your designs are beyond our grasp. The thoughtless cannot comprehend. The foolish cannot fathom this. The wicked may flourish. They may spring up like grass, but their doom is forever sealed. For you made me supreme forever. Your enemies, Lord, your enemies shall perish. All the wicked shall disintegrate. But you have greatly exalted me. I am anointed as with fragrant oil. I have seen the downfall of my foes. I've heard the doom of my attackers. The righteous will flourish like the palm tree. They will thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, we will flourish in the courts of our love. They will bear fruit even in old age. They will be ever fresh and fragrant. They will proclaim, the Lord is just. She is my rock, in whom there is no flaw.
Thank you so much. I'm just gonna, Hazel, if you could put your video on, so then I can add the pen. Okay, there we go. So, round of applause, what you would do it when we be in person. Thank you both so much for sharing this story, this work of art. So I'm just gonna ask a few questions and then we'll open it up for other folks who wanna respond and ask questions. So I guess I'm curious, Mix Cleo, if you could tell us a little bit more about Bubby and how you had this connection with her. How did that begin? How did you meet? What do you think motivated her to stand with you even when the community that she was part of and that you had been grown up in did not? And where is she now?
Sure, it's funny. First, Erev Tov, everyone. Good evening, salam alaikum. Thank you so much for taking a time out of your week to enjoy this magic. Hazel and I and the crew at SAJ and our sponsors are so happy to make this happen, to bring trans joy and resilience despite the hate that exists out there, that we as Jews, we always know are striving for a better world. I also wanted to let folks know that even though there was moments of pauses, I look at it artistically as its own form of art. And there are many drafts out there. So we could send you a draft trailer later if you want to go back and review. But just take the message and story it as it is, because we have a longer film that we have out there now for film festivals, and we're just giving you most of it. So with that being said, my mother is originally of Yemenite Israeli background, and she migrated to the States with no English, no family, just 2 kids. And we were growing up in the Lower East Side. We were always the cool, queer, Mizrahi, hippie family. I mean, despite people with their beautiful condos, everyone always wanted to come to our house for Shabbat and see what we were cooking. But it was a real struggle and painful for my mother to have community and to have family. And especially for us growing up, having no role models or people, feeling ostracized and indifferent and internalizing that for years. And my mother found, when she was getting more involved with the Jewish community, which although most of the Jews on the Lower East Side are, various demographics, the one that is most vocal is the Orthodox community. And my mother found this amazing woman who really hosts so many people to her home that don't feel like they belong during the holidays. Her name is Rosie Engelmeyer. And she's my adopted Bubby, because my grandparents passed, most of them before I even hit 2nd grade. And I remember coming for a Hanukkah party, and she had a lot of people, and I was barely in 2nd grade. And I see this beautiful, lovely woman towering over me. And she looks down at me and she says, "You are one of my grandchildren." And over a decade later, whether going to her during high school and conversing with her, and I always feel like I had a mature soul, and getting comfort for her. I would love to share with you another time a poem that I wrote for her, which is one of my best works, called Dear Bubby Roz, which I was able to perform finally when I saw her at a senior center after 2 years. But even when I came out, she just said, "I see the same innocent child that walked through my doors when you were a kid, and nothing will ever change that." And it made me cry so much, when we're always fearful as queer and trans folks that even the people closest to us will judge us, reject us, add to the hate and harm. And still, a lot of people from my former community, the moment I left Orthodoxy and the moment I came out, I was bad goods. I was not pure. I wasn't the friendly neighbor anymore. And she sticked around. And so that's that. And now she's in a nursing facility in New Jersey, which it's its own story, how I was able to sneak in and meet her. And it means every time I go to an award ceremony and I get something, I make sure to send her a copy of a postcard and said, "I guess you're right, Bubby. I'm doing something's gonna happen." And she always says, "From my mouth to God's ears." So she's more of the star than I am. But sometimes I'm also like, I'm fresh meat. What about me? Why are people not asking me and Hazel what we're doing, And
I'm getting there.
Bubby is featured everywhere. I'll just finally say, I remember telling, I told Bubby, these are all the countries that we've been featured in. And I got, I said India and this and that. And then I said Ireland, and she said, "Can you, do they speak English in Ireland?" I'm like, "Yes, they do, Bobby." So she has a little bit of dementia, but she's live, she's well, she's full of love and life. And, one of the most lovely beings that I felt was overlooked in her lifetime for being a feminist, for being disabled, for raising a bunch of children during, a conservative time when women weren't able to be divorced or single. And I feel like that created a full moment for her to embrace everyone who walked through her doors. Thank you.
It's a beautiful story. So the next question, of course, is for the two of you. Yes, Ad may have history, may she live to 120. Tell us a little bit, ex-Cleo, about how you decided to express what was going, like why and how it evolved to express what was going on in this kind of, it sounded like when you made the film where you were exploring transition and you were thinking about it, but maybe you weren't quite ready. And how did that move into a film? And also, Hazel, I'd love to hear how you got involved and what was the sort of creative process that led to this film.
I feel like I was being a little bit of a yenta, and I do that, but I mean it with love and passion.
No, I was going to ask anyway.
I was gonna take a step back and let Hazel answer first, and then I'll respond.
So we met in a like filmmaking mentorship program at this place called RealWorks, where they pair filmmakers with young people who want to make films about their story. And we got kind of paired together. Jajay made this amazing film about themselves during that time. And we kind of kept in touch and decided we want to work together again. I was in this residency at the time at Union Docs in Brooklyn. And so I had like a little more resources to like help put this together. But it was completely Jajay's idea. I kind of just like supported it and helped produce and film it. And I'm so happy we crossed paths at that time in my life, because I was also like trying to figure out my own gender. And I think making this film together really helped me like explore certain things. And I didn't even know, I don't even think I had come out at the time that we made this. So it was kind of like this amazing, unexpected result of the film and of working together and of being like, you know, I have a lot of close trans feminine friends, but I think, and we can talk and chat and hang out together, but I think making a project together with someone who shares that part of my identity is something I'll always remember, and is something, because we remain connected through that work, even though we're in different cities, and we get to experience the world kind of like through this thing that we made, and like a lot of negative things, a lot of positive things, but yeah.
It was really a hashgacha pratis, which is a divine providence, I believe. I mean, there were so many other mentors coming in, and this was 2015 we're first talking about, where I was in an externship at CUNY, and there were so many other young filmmakers, and I made a shorter film, which is not public, but has been my first film that I made when I was really wrestling with leaving orthodoxy, with exploring my identity, with feeling ostracized, named after my artist brand. I don't know if people could see it, Mix Enigma right there, which you could look online. We'll share later. And it was just a 5-minute anthology that I had to make with no experience. And, you know, it's like any form of art, it's the passion that you bring in that makes a beautiful project. And if I would have to do it over again, I would pick Hazel, of course. And at that time, I guess we would say we were two gender bending Jews, you know, in Brooklyn, which is very cliche for what Brooklyn is, right? And especially the Brooklyn Jewish scene. That's another film that I need to work on the subculture there. I'll just throw out one of the titles. It's going to called Let's Get High. About Orthodox and non-Orthodox people, you know, smoking marijuana and learning spirituality together. So that's another thing that I'll pitch to people, not here. Anyways, And, we were talking very openly about our struggles as filmmakers, as struggles as queer Jews, the lack of understanding and recognition. And then 2 years later, right, I'm close to graduating from college, and Hazel approaches me again and says, I have this grant. And I was really in crisis. I was attached to a mother that I loved my whole life. And the more I came out, the more I was pushed away. And oddly enough, even though I was in and out of homeless shelters since 2015, and still always having housing instability, despite living in New York and New York City and the protections, right? The lived experience that trans folks face, that we're not aware of and people overlook. Me as an artist, and I guess the activism, I'm thinking not only out of crisis, I'm thinking of my issue and how it connects to wider economic and disparities that our country is not seeing. And I know it and I'm seeing it. And I was very persistent with Hazel, and I'm like, this is the moment. Like, this is, to be a valued member in a Jewish community, and in a snap of a finger, you are tossed away, you are excommunicated, you are demonized. People, I don't know if people realize, because in one of the editions, we usually add it, but in this, I didn't know every time we're screening, which ones we're showing. When I'm constantly saying a message to the community, it's an actual letter that I'm reading, that in 2016, 15 plus Orthodox major rabbis in New York signed a letter, all mostly based on the Lower East Side, saying we are excommunicating and banning queer Jews from our spaces, as if that's legal. There's so many nonprofits that have Jewish funding, local Jewish funding, and they think they own it. So to be told outwardly and publicly, and even a letter being sent directly, imagine a bunch of queer-phobic propaganda leaflets were sent to you directly, illegally. And this is not only Jewish people, non-Jewish people too. And I was horrified that one moment you're in the closet and you're shamed. And I was also forced through conversion therapy for 2 years. That didn't work. I guess it made me this beautiful queen, resilient queen as a result. That's the result. But I went through the whole 9 yards, and to be in one moment valued and cherished, and now my inside is being tarnished and thrown away. I was like, how can the Jewish community do this? I understand it's an Orthodox community, but all these values and love and knowing me as a person, like, how can I just be discarded away? And even though Bubby opened up her home to me, the difficulty was, even though it was, not far from my mother's house either, I was closer into the Orthodox community. So I was getting up every day as a queer trans person, going to school, going to work, being heckled, being commented. But these are the same people that mocked my race. These are the same people that mocked my class. These are the same people that didn't value me. And I always struggled growing up, where my mother told me as a child, I always see the Williamsburg Bridge as like this Berlin Wall, where the Black and Puerto Rican side where we lived, which was multicultural, and then there was a more upper class, Orthodox Jewish environment and white. And my mother would always tell me, your people are on the other side. And I'm like, but we feel a cultural affinity with the people around us, right? We're Mizrahi, we share certain foods, and I also speak Spanish. And how can the people that don't look like us, don't talk like us? I guess for me, being a first generation American, despite having a Jewish identity with people next door, I just always felt like a charity case. I always felt like we were treated as something that wasn't truly prized and valued. And then added, when you have more identities that isn't included, you just internalize that there is no place for you. So it was really, really important for me to document, my experiences, to heal me, to not feel erased when no one else would. And, when there's a will, there's a way, right? And I've been so blessed for the people and the support and all this really coming out of nothing. How many people who have been disenfranchised and in crisis get to have an opportunity to tell their stories and to shape the people around them, right? That's real blessings that I have to take for granted. And that's why I always make sure that it's not just about me. It's a larger conversation. And, you know, obviously with the rabbi, we'll talk about ways our communities can be more inclusive, but also ways that the Jewish community continues to gatekeep us and continues to exclude us and continues to not see us as full human beings. And for me, I always feel one foot in the Jewish community and one foot out, ready to run, you know, go both ways. And it's a part of me. And, you know, as one Orthodox rabbi said, when that letter was sent around from Stanton Street Shul, the rabbi at the time said to all the other rabbis, he said, nobody owns orthodoxy. And most importantly, to see the change in activism Bubby made when I told her about my struggles, she went once down in her building where there's a minyan, and there was a very prominent Orthodox family that wrote these hateful messages in the newsletters saying, you know, look, there's an LGBT Shabbaton happening. They're trying to infringe in our communities, like through the organization Eshel, which supports LGBTQ folks from the Orthodox world. And she went straight up to this really powerful guy and she said, how dare you prevent innocent souls who just want to daven peacefully? How dare you tell Jews where they could practice, where they could be? And for me to hear that from a almost 80-something-year-old woman who probably has no competency around this, you know, topic, which was, as much as I loved her, I got scared that she would have the same ignorance as other people. It just was heartbreaking and beautiful. And she really kept me living and kept me going. And Razi, to say a little bit about her, you know, when she had 3 children and she was a single parent, you know, a lot of people looked down on her in the Jewish world, the Orthodox world, the world that was in, you know, in the 40s. And she had to navigate, and she opened up her home to so many people who never felt welcomed. And I really witnessed since I was a child, the ableism she faced. You know, she would, the Orthodox community has an issue with people with pets, and she has a dog for walking medical reasons, which we know under halacha, you know, anything's permitted to break Shabbat for your health. And I always love her spontaneity that she would go straight up to the biggest rabbi and she said, don't I deserve a good Shabbos? You're going to see me, right? I have a few people who also feel underrepresented. They're like, you're going to witness, you're going to see me, and you're going to respect me because here I am. Now, I didn't have that courage at the time, but Bubby has taught me so much and loved me so much. And it hurt me when I saw that her own family in many ways didn't want to be in conversations because they labeled her as I'll just be real, an old hag who had a hoarding issue, who was not relevant. And I didn't care about the hoarding. I saw the neshama. That's, I guess, my experience. When you feel excluded, you learn to include other people who've walked in your shoes. And I think that's all we can do as Jews is,
I think one of the most powerful things about the film is this bridging of worlds through this commonality of marginality. I mean, she had so many things that put her on the margins, and that led her to be, you know, and for you to make this incredible connection as 2 people navigating these worlds on the margins. So I just want to open it up for questions from other folks. If you want to put your virtual hand up, I can call on you, or maybe put your just physical hand up and I will find you, and we'll invite a few other questions before I insert any other questions or comments too, thoughts, reactions, people's own personal experiences. Okay, Ryan McDowell.
Hey there. I just wanted to say that it was absolutely beautiful. Like, I was over here completely verklempt, just like, and as a queer trans Jew who converted, I don't have my grandparents, I don't have my parents or anything like that. And to see such a loving grandmother figure and to have that in your life and to have that spirit inside of you nurtured by that feeling, by that unconditional love, like that is just the most beautiful thing. And in such a conservative area at that, to be having all of this is just beautiful, just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm so glad you were here to be there and to experience that. I saw another hand, but I feel like it just went away. Who was the other person with the hand? I did see others. Okay, anyone else? Nelly. Do you want to just unmute?
Yeah, just a phenomenal film. I guess one of the things I wonder about is the community that you were in, and what if any impact has this film had on that community? I'm not sure. I'm here in Toronto, Canada, so I'm a little ways away from y'all. So thank you.
So awesome that you're here from Canada. Thank you.
Well, I first want to also recognize that, even though Rabbi Lauren has a congregation in the Upper West Side, only until recently when I met them, I also felt that they were part of my community. There's so many Jews that aren't recognized by the Orthodox community, and that's kind of what Orthodoxy does. It segregates people who don't feel like they have a home, right? However they identify, interracially, interfaith, whatever. And for me, living in a little bubble, right? Growing up in an Orthodox world, it sounds so silly, but you never would have thought, out of all places, even in New York City, because I was in my little bubble, that there are all these welcoming temples that celebrate you, right? In the same city. I'm not talking about a state away, a country away, 50 miles away. That's really, I really grew up seeing New York City as a conservative city. I mean, there still is very conservative parts. We can't claim that it's all wusa, liberal, welcoming, when there's so many challenges that we need to extend our allyship to. I will say that there is there is a queer executive director at the Education Alliance that I had conversations with. We never got to do a screening because I was very active there as an organizer in my youth. I did try also to the Abrams Art Center, which I was a dramatist student since I was 9 years old. I'll tell you a little cute story. My mother wanted for example, to send me to ballet. And, I had a great time and my brother didn't. And this was gender play at a young age. And then she speaks to her father, who's a very religious rabbi in Israel, a Yemenite rabbi. And she says, should I send them for the performance? And my grandfather said no, but what made her say no to the performance, she says, yeah, I'm not spending $1,000 for a tutu. So I've really evolved, they've grown. They haven't made an official programming. I mean, I'm a featured artist there, and Hazel also had a beautiful show there in the airspace residency. I want to give a shout out for their work that they're doing. We do work not only in the Jewish community, right? It's just a part of us. I don't think this is a film that they will watch. This is not a film that they would directly have. The reality is that out of the 30 plus film festivals that we've been featured worldwide, and I'm talking about places as big as the Kunstenhall Charlottenburg, right, in Scandinavia, to UC Davis and the University of Chicago, our film was often typecasted as not a documentary. It was seen as experimental, which makes you only eligible for less categories. From all the major liberal Jewish film festivals, none of them said yes to us. Besides one virtual streaming platform called Juicy and SAJ. And it's very, very hurtful that your own community, which, the rabbi will ask, and we'll go into conversation soon, to gatekeep you. And, it's a very PG film. There's nothing profane about it. There's nothing, the only moment that there was a curse word, I don't know if you remember it, a screeching sound, there was an actual person who me and Hazel and another queer filmmaker, when we were walking in Flatbush, decided to attack us because he couldn't handle our presence. And I remember the Shomrim, right? The security, the like unofficial, you know, branch of security funded under the NYPD, were there, and the Orthodox community were just standing and watching. So that's their presence and their view of us. No one, it didn't matter if I would have said, oh, I'm Jewish. People stared and laughed. And many times it feels like you're in a twilight zone when you're a marginal minority. And there's many times I've been publicly harassed. I was even the other week, someone pulled out a knife on me and threatened my life for simply just existing. And I told them to not follow me. And everyone on that bench who had the power to do something didn't step up. And it's sometimes it's like, why are we the only one who's stepping up? And that's why, unfortunately, trans folks are being murdered. They are not being stepped up by their allies. They're not being humanized. These laws that degrade us and the propaganda that degrades us and our culture when we've always existed, and it took a journey to find, until people step up and see us as human beings, unfortunately, the statistics are going to keep going high. And I don't think with our values, we could accept a world that anyone's being harmed for their gender, their expression, and whoever they identify, because we are all creatures divinely of this earth.
I also just want to add that, just adding on to what Jay is saying, I mean, for me in making this film, I wanted to counter like dominant ways that trans people are represented on film. And especially since we made this, there's been an explosion of media made by trans people, featuring trans people. And there's also been an explosion of shows about Orthodox Jewish people on Netflix. And to me, there's very few things that I've seen that don't sensationalize either experience, right? We're seeing Orthodox people as like uniformly repressive, sexist, all these things. And I think we know that that's like one section of the Orthodox community. And same with trans people, you know, on film, we're seeing them either like killed at the end of the movie, or we have to like witness their pain during the film. And I also think that's why we've struggled to find traction with this film in like outside of experimental film realms or outside of academic realms, because of the way we chose to represent ourselves, transness, orthodoxy. You know, Razi is this, you know, I think she consistently defies expectations throughout the film. And that's what she was like to work with too. So I think, I mean, that's the work I continue to make, is trying to figure out how to represent ourselves without giving in to like this kind of type of like visibility politics, or like having to like go through something or conquer our pain or something in order to like, you know, reach some type of liberation.
Thank you both so much for that. Carol.
Hi. You know, I go way back to learning about film in many different ways. And I love documentary films and I love experimental films. And this is an experimental film. If you look back at the history of what experimental films are in New York City, especially through the Lower East Side. And I found some of it confusing. And I love what you stand for, what you're fighting for, what you're trying for, what you're showing. I hate the discrimination and the lack of understanding that happens. I'm a former person who worked on films myself and videos in the very early video years. So I kind of understand that there's a number of different issues that you're struggling with this film. It is an experimental film, and yet, and I was confused about what this is going to mix Cleo. I was very confused about what you were coming out as. I had no idea who you were or what you were dealing with, other than you're dealing with being transgenderly different from everybody else. I found it confusing, and I'm giving you an honest response. And I love film, and I love what you're, and the fact that you're putting yourself out there. So please don't misunderstand anything that I'm saying. I think it is an experimental film. People don't understand for years how to deal with experimental films, and they've always been in their own category in trying to show things. So the acceptance of the film, I think, ought to be seen as that issue and not as the issue of what you're dealing with in the film. At the same time, having that wonderful Bubby there to deal with and to counter against was, to not against, but with, was just, it was wonderful and warming to see, especially in terms of years that I know I spent as an ally with many people. So it seems to me that part of what you're dealing with is you were an artist to begin with. A little bit of what your life is that you're revealing. We don't see any of what that life is that you're talking about in this film. Okay, we only know the presence of who you are in that film. And there is so much more about who you are that I'm learning from this conversation that's not necessarily in the film. And that may be the other film that you're going to need to make, because you're an artist, you're a filmmaker, you're an activist and struggling for what you believe is right. And changing the understandings of people in the world. And yes, the Orthodox community is misconstrued and misunderstood as well. So I'm glad you're beginning to find other communities that you can relate to and be with. And I look forward to whatever future work you make.
Hi, Carol. Thank you for that response. We always welcome diverse perspectives. I'll just say shortly to make sure we have room for other questions. I remember I was asked for people from me, why don't you show more of the community? And one, whether our community here already is aware of the Orthodox community, we also have to be mindful of how dangerous it is for people to go into communities that they're not welcomed, right? And especially when someone is in distress. Parts of the recording were in other Orthodox communities where I'm not, I am noticeable, but I'm not known, right? There is that aspect, right? And I think what Hazel was saying about flipping the script is it's very easy to make a typical documentary about another trans person who is homeless, who is facing all these barriers in society, but that isn't really joyful in humanizing a person as something more than what society labels them as, right? And it is a docu-fictional film, right? And it does fit many categories, but that hasn't really been the barrier, which we hope to discuss, of the pushback and comments that people see and face. And we are just here trying to, not trying to spread awareness to try to change the Orthodox world. We're just taking a group of people, creating a chosen family in an unaccepting environment, and trying to show the beauty in it, and trying to connect people who may feel that they don't have a home, especially in the Jewish world. I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on, but thank you for that exchange. So Yael asked, if you had all the funding in the world, what project would you do? So I don't know who wants to start.
Hazel, want to go first?
Sure. I actually wrote a script last year for the sci-fi where these activists kind of like hijack the spaceship and like build this separatist community on Mars. Very different themes than what we explored in this film, but I think it would take a really, really big budget to make that, but I also think it would be fun. At this point in my like creative process, I think the way I am making films about identity is really subtle, and I'm not like, I would always cast my films with trans women, but it wouldn't be about their transition, or it wouldn't be about, they would just get to be the people who they are, and the full people who they are. They like spaceships, or they like whatever, or they play sports, just get to be themselves. So yeah, that's what I would make.
Thanks, Hazel.
It's so funny you say that, Hazel, because about SpaceX, because I was in Bruceville, Texas a few weekends ago on a young Jewish leadership retreat. And apparently 4 miles from this Jewish camp, there was a SpaceX launch. So I was too tired to go down into the village and climb the ladder. But, you know, we're very close to making that happen. I didn't speak to Elon Musk yet. I'll ask his more competent liaison. But anyways, a little humor always helps. For me, you know, there is this always this struggle for Jews being a minority in the country that they've lived in, you know, historically, right? As nomadic people, as well as other identities that we're discussing. But for me, the most important identity that felt very, very hidden was my Mizrahi roots, right? You know, according to halacha, you're often supposed to follow whatever, in an Orthodox sense, whatever the father is doing. But when the father's not there and your mother's Mizrahi, but everything around you is, you know, Ashkenazi or whitewashed, and then added, when you think of American culture, I coined this term, it's copyrighted, so no one could take it. It's called goy washing. And what that means is when you have members that are not of our community, or when Jews make content for a larger Gentile audience that is watered down, right? Everyone around you probably knows the word, you know, putz, you know, or the, you know, thinking we all eat bagels and schmear, and the foods and the cultures and the customs that I grew up with weren't representative of that. So I've often struggled being double viewed, even in New York and elsewhere, where I was either seen as Latinx or Arab, and the stereotypes that came with that. My Jewish identity was always questioned. The people in the urban areas always assumed if you're not white, you're Sephardic, when Yemenite is not Sephardic, right? There's many Mizrahi communities that were started way before there was an idea and conception of Ashkenazi. And I really, really, really felt, and there still is so many Jews of color and of Mizrahi experience that feel their history, especially in the mainstream, is not recorded and seen and valued. So I always wanted to make a film. It was called MIA, which, you know, as much as it sounds like missing in America, it'd be called Mizrahim in America. And I actually wanted to do that for Real Works, but I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna make a 5-minute film in a few months about the vast history. But that would be like interviewing, you know, Professor Ella Shohat, who's at NYU, for example, who is a very well-known feminist Mizrahi scholar. And she talks so much about Mizrahi and Jewish identities, but her, even though she is in the film department, her, just for merely having her identity, her perspective is seen as radical. And she's not ever admitted tenure in the Judaics department at NYU. And she has more books about Jewish content than, you know, a lot of the professors that are there, because she is a Mizrahi woman. So that would be an example of someone that I would interview, to millennials like Ruben Shimonov, who's co-sponsoring tonight, of SQMN, Sephardic Queer Mizrahi Network, that provides social support for queer Mizrahi Jews. There is so many people from all backgrounds that I want to talk about race, identity, ethnicity, heritage, and how they intersect and walk and interact with people in the American context. I did go once to the New York Sephardic Film Festival and pitch it to someone, and there was this very like high-powered woman who looked at me and didn't take me seriously because of her projection of what I'm capable. But, you know, maybe a few awards, I'll be like, maybe you need to send me a resume before I come to you. So
great. I want to introduce Noah Ruben Blos, who is our SAJ's rabbinical intern, who wanted to ask a question as well.
Hey, I first just want to say thanks so much for this, and also for the dream of the films that you really want to make, because I want to see them both. So one thing that I loved about about Bubby and Them is the way that you kind of represented, like, as I was watching it, I was thinking about like queer or trans, like, dream space of, like, I feel like there's so much that when we are like going through the world and experiencing oppression, and I think other folks that experience oppression experience this too, where it's like we're in that world, but then we also have to like live in the world of our imagining, where that oppression is not a thing and where we can actually be ourselves. And I feel like I was like watching you kind of like represent that on the screen in some of the, with like some of the, like the cutouts, like floating through the air, like these kind of things. And I guess I'm curious to hear like about some of those choices, or to just to hear like about your process of how to represent like the world as it is, and also the world as you want it to be, and as we want it to be.
I guess I could say quickly, so I do have a background in media and gender studies, and, you know, as liberal and radical as it typically is, if you know, focusing on race, gender, and orientation as it's represented in the media, right? And we know historically in America, whenever there has been an arrival of a new immigrant, from Asians to Muslims to Jews, the media always seems to respond in hate propaganda, right? To invoke exclusion, invoke xenophobia. And people really forget that what TV is a powerful media, right? When all the information you have about the people around you is based on a biased source, you're going to believe that it's credible, right? And it's really, really dangerous when you have a community that is demonized. I literally saw yesterday, there's this viral video of someone who was labeled as trans, but what was more disturbing was they were dancing in a home that apparently they had, you know, bodies, you know, there, and blood, and this narrative of, you know, trans people are out to harm you and kill you and disrupt the moral fabric of society, right? That narrative, that fear, that message, those stories about how all of us are perceived really translates to how people are perceived in the street. And this is really, really dangerous. And this is really important in re-educating and expanding people. And there's so many resources I'd be happy to share as we move on. But I remember being at a, you know, a lecture at the Lincoln Center for a film that I also, actually, I was there for, also for Bubby and Them, where we got an award a few years ago at the Rainbows America Film Festival. And I remember there was a, what is it? There's like a magazine for Lincoln Center about film, like Film Link or something. And I remember I asked the journalist exactly that. And she always says to me, make sure you check in with your subject and that they're always comfortable with the way they're being represented, right? That's like such a powerful thing. And what we tend to forget as people, we all have the same needs, right? We all want to be loved. We all want to be seen positively. We want to be liked. We want people to enjoy us and connect. And still, the major media networks, even for minorities, still haven't found ways to converge and fight for the same message of humanization in the media, right? In representation. And that's what really made me want to go into this field, because it's so powerful and so easily consumed. And I also want to always acknowledge that projects and films do not have to be a large screening. It's something small that you share to a group of people, right? I've created a bunch of mutual aids during the pandemic to support members of our community who are working artists, and to give them some space, right? You know, making a writing space in your temple for people who might need to reflect about this moment of both visibility and also violence against the TGNCI, which for anyone who doesn't know is an acronym for trans, gender nonconforming, and intersex people, right? There is books. I was part of the New York Public Library, and there is a committee of trans librarians that work to making inclusive stuff. And there's over 200 titles I was part of editing and blogs that is available at your fingertips, right? So we don't always have to think whether it's political action, whether it's media activism, spaces that we could make could be a one-time small little thing that even I, create support, online for people to come together talking about this moment. There's so many various ways we could be an ally, we could support, we could understand, and most importantly, the beautiful part of visual language, and especially as it relates to the human experience, is that it will evoke an emotion in everyone and anyone, hopefully, right? Sharing, coming out of our closets, it's not just an identity thing. It's, I lost a family member, right? I dealing with an illness, right? Those stories, we need to come to a place in society, New York, post-capitalism, ideally, where we could converse with each other as human beings and share and not feel judged and feel affirmed and absorbed and learn and enlighten, because there are so many walls that we build up and we manufacture in our heads and in our lives, that there's yet so many experiences that we have not been able to take in because of our fears, because of our judgments, because of the assumption, I'm only going to be with these people who are better and good for me and not those. And yes, start small and be authentic. That's what I would say.
I think that that's actually a perfect place to sort of begin to close. That was really beautiful and inspiring. And what you're sharing is the importance of representation and the importance of this whole evening of people being able to determine the stories that they are creating. And here, thank you for someone wrote who is a trans Jew who has stayed Orthodox. And there are communities that are a lot is changing rapidly in the Jewish community. It's not fast enough, but thankfully also we have Keshet and teens that I've heard these stories that through the pandemic with Keshet is, just tons of teen programming, and that kids have found Orthodox kids or kids in communities that are more traditional and less accepting have found Keshet and gone into the closet of their literal closet, not just actual closet, but the physical closet of their rooms inside to be on these Zooms with Keshet, right? And have discovered it through the pandemic, and it's exploding. So I'm thrilled that there's more and more support for trans Jews in the Jewish community, and that, Jewish communities like SAJ are making space and enabling these kinds of conversations. And at the same time, there's still so much work that needs to be done. There is still so much until we have full representation, until people are fully ready to welcome and embrace with open arms people who are trans, non-binary, and step up as allies, as you have said so beautifully tonight. Our work is not done. So thank you for making this incredible story and for telling it in the way that you did, and how you explained that was also so important for us to remember, to share the joy and to share these, the positive and the ways of building community as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you to both of you. Thank you to everyone who was here tonight. It seemed like we had great geographic representation of all genders and all different experiences, different kinds of communities that brought you here. So we are extremely grateful. I believe that there's a shorter version on YouTube. Is that right? How do people find? Yeah, so people can put into YouTube Bubby and Them, and can find the video to share out and share with other people. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you
are
so much.
Curious about also SAJ, please join our listserv. Just come and check out our website. We want to do more and more programs that highlight the voices of trans and other groups in the community that need that kind of representation. So thank you all for being with us. Thank you, Mix Cleo, Jay. Thank you, Hazel, and for all
don't don't be a stranger, folks. Feel free to reach out to the rabbi and the SAJ team, whether in person, hopefully socially distanced, or to email me, right? This is a community conversation. It's not just a individual promotion. And we ideally want to have more Jewish spaces to screen and to show us, to make us feel that we matter, we belong, and we are part of, and always have been, of the Jewish community. So thank you so much for everyone's time, and Shavua Tov, and let's go into 2022 with more tikkun for all of us, regardless of how you identify.